This is America Weekend. I'm Mike Bennett. Naturalist and farmer Greg Quinn is responsible for helping to bring black currants back to the U.S. market, and he grows black currants on his currant farm in the Hudson Valley, New York. Here's his latest installment from the farm.
Hi, my name is Greg Quinn. Welcome to this week's entry into Notes from the Currant Farm. This past week's snow left the currant farm covered in a soft, billowy white blanket. The below-zero temperatures at night ensure that the snow will stick around for a while, and more is forecasted for later in the next couple of days. I enjoy living in the northeast part of the country because I enjoy the four seasons. So when winter is cold and snowy, well, that's the way it's supposed to be. A nice deep snow cover is actually good for my currant plants, and most other plants as well. It helps protect them from the cold, dry winds of winter, and when it melts in the spring, it keeps the soil moist so that all the beneficial bacteria can wake up the earth and nourish all the new root growth. But cold and snow pose a challenge for many of the winter residents here on the farm. The day after the storm, I looked out the window from the old farm kitchen and noticed 3 bluebirds fluffed up and huddled together against the frigid wind on top of one of the many bluebird houses sitting on a pole out in the field. I watched, and one by one they entered the small hole, all disappearing into the box. Later that day, I trudged out to the box through the knee-deep snow and opened the clean-out panel to see what was going on. There were 9 bluebirds all piled up on top of one another, happily enjoying their collective warmth. They turned their heads and looked at me as if to say, "There's no more room in here, close the door." So I did. While some bluebirds head further south in the winter, many stick around. It's not an easy life. During the spring, summer, and fall, bluebirds are predominantly insectivorous, eating large quantities of insects. In the winter, however, they have to be content with the few seeds or occasional dried berries they find. They're great to have around for insect control, but I really just love seeing that beautiful, striking blue of the males flying through the summer air. Now, what if I told you the feathers of bluebirds are not blue, but they're actually colorless? Ornithologists have known for a long time that many birds, like those with yellow or red feathers, get their color from the pigments in the foods they eat. Flamingos, for example, get the pink pigments in their feathers from the algae and shellfish that make up their diet. But where does the blue in indigo buntings, blue jays, and bluebirds come from? We all know it's not from their diet because the blue pigments, like those in blueberries, are destroyed when the bird digests them. One theory was that the bird appears blue for the same reason that the sky appears blue. Different colors are sometimes perceived because of different wavelengths of each color. Now, there are 3 primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. In the sky, red and yellow wavelengths are longer and pass through the atmosphere without reflecting much of their color. But the shorter blue wavelengths bounce off the particles and scatter those wavelengths back to our eyes, creating what looks like a blue sky. Dr. Richard Prume, an ornithologist from Yale, discovered that as blue feathers are different from other feathers, when they grow, the stringy keratin molecules in the cells separate from water, like oil from vinegar. When the water dries and is replaced by air, the keratin structure has a lot of tiny air pockets, sort of like a sponge. When white light hits the feathers, the keratin spongy pattern causes red and yellow wavelengths to cancel each other out, but the shorter blue wavelengths reflect back to the beholder's eyes, and this is called structural color. It's different from the actual pigment color of the flamingos and cardinals and goldfinches. If you grind up the discarded feathers from a red, yellow, or pink bird, which get their color pigment from diet, the powder will be the color of the original feather. However, if you grind up the feathers of a bluebird, after they're done with them, the blue color will disappear, and the powder will be virtually colorless. This is because it was the little holes in the keratin of the feathers that allowed the blue wavelength to bounce back to our eyes, similar to the particles of the blue sky. The colors are not actually blue, they just appear to be blue. So even though, technically, those bluebirds huddling out together in the bluebird box are all colorless, it doesn't matter because whether it's our perception that makes their incredibly beautiful feathers blue or the joy of the appearance of the blue sky after a winter storm, the complexities of our natural world continues to bring us simple pleasures to anyone who perceives them. For a podcast of this week's notes with pictures, or previous notes from the Currant Farm, or to learn more about why currants were illegal to grow for 100 years, go to currants.com. I'm Greg Quinn, wishing you a colorful week.
With Greg Quinn, I'm Mike Bennett. You're listening to America Weekend.